It's good. Okay. So this is really part two. So to recap, for those who missed part one, we're starting a story in the middle. I was starting a story in the middle, especially when you learn something political. And in the case of Tanakh, there is a beginning. Bereshit bara Elokim et Shemayim v'ha'aretz. God, the beginning of God's creation, etc. But we're picking up a story that's really in the middle. A lot of water under the bridge. What we talked about last time, and we'll see more of it today, was the reality that there were threats in the north of Eretz Yisrael already, biblical times, that the political landscape was very complicated. What the Tanakh endeavors to do is not just to tell us a story for the sake of the historical element of it, but in order for us to learn spiritual lessons and to understand the degree to which whatever unfolds now, there's always antecedents. It doesn't mean, and I'm saying this again, no one should draw the wrong conclusions here. I'm not a political strategist. I said last time, I repeat again. I'm not a historian. I'm not trying to give prognostications about what should happen now, what will happen now. None of that. But just to understand through the lens of the Torah, and the Torah is Torah Shebirtav, Torah Nevi'im Ketuvim, to understand one of the episodes that was that's documented in the Tanakh, that tells us not only the story about the political, but where the spiritual layer fit in. One of the things that we saw last week was the reality that the body politic of the Jewish people was split. Medinat 1 and Medinat 2, Malchut in those days. Malchut Yehuda, Malchut Yisrael. The vast majority of the people of Malchut Yisrael. It's sometimes called in academic circles the Northern Kingdom, but there's no such thing in our tradition. It's Malchut Yisrael. Those are the 10 tribes who eventually become the 10 lost tribes. Machloket if they came back, or if they're coming back now, right? So, min hastam, that's what seems to be happening. And this is a story about the threats. I call it confronting northern threats from the north. Particularly, we learned last time, where we ended last time, was that the king of Aram decided that he wanted to have his way with the kingdom of Israel, of Melachim Yisrael. And he tells the king, who is a very complicated person, Achav, I want everything you have. But he's very specific. And it turns out that what he meant when he was so specific, when he said, I want your women, your children, and your best of your children, and your money, is he didn't just want them to be subservient to him and to pay him tribute. He wanted to take them into captivity. Lashevi. He wants them. That's what he's really talking about. And that's where Achav draws the line and says, no, that I won't allow. That's on the level of Pshat. What we ended with last time, this adds to the complexity. I won't go down the whole thing again. That in that request, according to Chazal, what was Aram also asking for? He wanted the Sefer Torah, this king's Sefer Torah. So that was Machmad Einav, the beauty of the beauty that was the precious, that was just precious in his eyes. The king of Aram says, I want to take it. What Achav say? No way, never. We'll never allow it. So the level of Pshat, it was about taking people, and it was about taking all the wealth and capturing and laying waste to Malchut Yisrael and its capital city Shomron. But on the level of Ruchniut, there was another layer of the war going on, which was a spiritual, ideological layer, which is, I'll take away that which is your lifeblood. And of course, and this is how we ended last week, but if you want to, I did record it, so probably if you want to, you can go back and so you get more of the backstory. How could it be that this person, Achav, who was so complicated and had so many, I would say, negative tendencies, worshipped idols, he did terrible things, also cared so much about the Torah, because if you're going to try to take it away from me, I'm gonna fight you to the death. Chas v'shalom, anyone, right? Anyone should ever touch the Torah. Come in. Sure. So that's where we ended. And if you look in chapter 20, I use the Koren Tanakh because it has Hebrew English, it's easily accessible. I'm in Melachim Alef, Parak Chaf, page 400 and 435. So again, we're in the middle of the story, and I just did the recap from the first class. Now we'll get to the next class, and that is today. Top of the page. At the very top of the page, I guess we're reading a couple of psukim we read before. Before the actual shots are fired, there's a war of words. So looking on page 435, Hebrew and English, Ben-Hadad is the name of the Aramean king. Aram is in the vicinity of Damascus. It's north. He has arrived with 32 other kings, and they made a massive coalition arrayed against Malchut Yisrael. And he's basically laid siege about to lay siege on the capital city of Shomron, of Malchut Yisrael. Vayishlach elav ben Hadad ve'omer ko yasun li Elohim v'cho yosifu. So shall the gods do to me, says Ben Hadad. Top of the page, verse 10. Pasuk Yud. Right? This is the gods should do this, and even more. Im yispok afar Shomron lishalim l'chol ha'am asher b'raglai. There won't be enough dirt on the ground in Shomron when I'm done, because you have so many people picking it up, because we're going to take everything until the studs. We'll break down the house of the studs. We'll strip everything. We're taking everything. There won't be anything left. Vayan Melech Yisrael Vayomer. Sorry, I should mention also. Look at the top of the page. How is the king of Aram called? By his name, Ben Hadad. Yeah. How is Achav called? Pasuk Yud verse 11. Melech Yisrael. Which one is it's a subtle piece, but this happens. You have this also in the Torah. Sometimes he's called Paro, sometimes he's called Melech Mitzrayim. And the Torah wants to amplify his power, his prestige. Melech Mitzrayim wants to show him to be a human like everybody else, who is also subject to the same vagaries and issues, etc. Paro. And it goes back, same thing here. Ben Hadad, it's a Ben Hadad. Melech Yisrael. Which is fascinating because, again, Achav has a very complicated record. Very complicated. Last week we saw a Gemara that paints him in a little bit of a positive light. Why was he Zocher to win wars? Because he respected the Torah. Because of this story. He respected the Torah. When someone wanted to take it from him, he would die for the Torah. Would he live for the Torah? That was a different question. Okay. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayan Melech Yisrael v'yomer Dabru. Go tell him I said, a very famous expression. Al yitalel choger ki mefateach. Ad hayom hazeh, I think in Eretz Yisrael, in the literary circles, they use this expression. Let the one who girds not be already as excited and jubilant and singing songs of praise, like for victory, like the one who opens. What is it referring to? You go to war, you gird your loins, and it means also you put on the utility belt. Right? Today they say put on the pakal. We're going. The ephod, the pakal, we're going. So you're going. This is what Achav says to him. You're going out to a battle against me. Maybe you shouldn't be so excited that you're going to win. By the way, that's fighting words for a man who last week we saw actually sent to King Hadad, Melech Aram, to give you whatever you want, till he understood that it really meant I'm going to literally take everything away. But initially, he was very subservient. He doesn't have power. So pretty amazing that he spoke that way. Verse 12. So when Ben Hadad hears the news, he's in a field base near Shomron, presumably with the kings. They're in Sukkot, in huts. They're in the field. And he says to his servants, "Go put the matzor, the siege on the city." Pasuk Yud Gimel. Look at the anonymity and the identity, and how surprising this is. V'hinei navi echad nigash el Achav melech Yisrael vayomer ko amar Hashem hara'ita et kol ha'amon hagadol hazeh hineni notno v'yadcha yom v'yadata ki ani Hashem. So who's the Navi? Doesn't tell us. Right. You would think it's Eliyahu, no? Because if you learn more of the story and you zoom out, chapter 19, this is 20, plus Perak Yud Tet and Yud Chet and Yud Zayin. And before, it's Eliyahu Navi. So say it's Eliyahu Navi. Not Eliyahu, would have said his name. At the end of the last parak Yotet, we didn't learn it last week, but it's right there. Eliyahu already gives smicha to his Talmud, to Elisha. So there's also Elisha. Not him. It's not him. How come? Navi Echad, Stam. We have to understand a little deeper in a moment why that is. Navi Echad. Yeah. So what does he tell him basically? Look at all this massive group. I'm going to put it into your hands, and you'll know that I am Hashem. Vayomer Achav, b'mi, which is really quite a question. Who's going to win? Okay, b'mi. Vayomer, ko amar Hashem. Hashem responds. So says Hashem. Benarei sarei dinot. Vayomer mi yasra milchama. Vayomer ata. So Achav literally does not understand who's going to beat all these people. It's 32 kings and their armies and everybody, and they were arrayed and they made a matzor on Shomor. And what does he tell them? They outnumber you and they have better weapons and they already put a siege, but you have one thing: Hashem will be with you. That's what he tells Achav. Come on, he doesn't believe it. So it's who's going to actually fight the war? Like, who's going to do it? Yeah, you're going to do it. Yeah, mi yasor milchama v'yomar ata. Vayivkod, Tetva, Vayivkod et na'arei sariyam dinot, Vayu matayim shnayim ushloshim, Va'acharehem pakad et kol ha'am, kol b'nei Yisrael, shivat alafim. So it's 232. That's that's who it is. From the Sariyam Dinot, whoever that is. We'll have to understand that better in a moment. After them, they had the whole nation. Who's the whole 7,000 people, the whole nation. The whole thing. Vayitzu b'tzorayin. Uven Hadad, shotesh shikor basukot, huva Melachim, shloshim ushnai melech, ozeroto. So what is he doing? It's lunchtime. So he's having lunch with some special mashke. And he's drunk. How could he be drunk on the battlefield? Because he's a glutton. And because he really thinks there's no chance that they could marshal any kind of a defense against the onslaught. There's some group, a gedud, 232 people. They look like they're royalty. They're Sarei Dinot. They left from Shomron. They're trying to sneak out or something, or maybe they had already been out of the Matzor. Somehow, we'll see that shortly, because how do they get out if there's a siege? Yatzu mishomron. They give them word to Ben Hadad, who's drunk. Ben Hadad answers, Vayomer im l'shalom yatzau tifsum chayim. V'im l'chaya yatzau chayim tifsum. It's almost like the Navi, just on the level of Pshat, gives you the drunken man's limerick. If they're alive, catch them alive. If they came for peace, catch them alive. And if they came for war, alive, catch them. It's beautiful. It's a little limerick. It gives you a little rhyme, yeah? But what was the point? It's going to be so easy to get them that we capture them alive. We don't have to kill them, yeah? And regardless, I want them alive. And these had gone out from the city of Shomron. The boys, I mean, they're not necessarily boys, but they're Na'arim. Sometimes it just means young people. It doesn't have to mean that they're literally teenagers. These are the Sarei Dinot, the princes of these, the ministers of the Medinot, but 232 of them in the Chayil, but 7,000. What do we learn? Pasuk Chaf. Vayaku ish isho, vayanusu Aram, vayudefem Yisrael, vayimalet ben Adan melech Aram, al sus ufarashim. The king has to escape on a horse. He takes off. Yeah, he goes secretly. He didn't have a tunnel, so he had to go on a horse. Yeah. Who won? The Jews won. Fewer people? Yeah, by orders of magnitude. They won. The last line of this section of the story is the Navi, same Navi, seems, came to Melech Yisrael and he told him, go and strengthen yourself now, and you should know, and you should see that what you should do to prepare, because in a year from now, Melech Aram will be back. It's not the end of him. He's coming back. There'll be another round of fighting, so get ready. So, We'll pause here. Let's see some Mefarshim inside to learn it a little bit, some of the sources, Mina Mekorot. But while I do it, I'm curious, thoughts, questions? What are you thinking about in the parak? What we just saw today about the war? Sound familiar? They're totally outnumbered? Like David and Goliath. Everybody loves the story of David and Goliath. Very important story. David and Goliath, one person against one person, giant, right? Yeah. It became a metaphor, David and Goliath. I would suggest not just David and Goliath, but the motif of what does David have that Goliath doesn't have? The Navi tells us Hashem is with him. That's it. That's it. Because by the law of Teva, of nature, we understand who's going to win. He's much bigger, but you understand it's 1-to-1. I would argue that a lot of the stories in the Tanakh is David and Goliath, David and Goliath, David and Goliath, but it's not 1-to-1. It's the nation and the nation. Rabim biyad me'atim. I'm already getting into the Hanukkah, excitement a little bit. Someone asked me to write an essay. Somebody think, huh? A lot of write a lot of things. And you just think about this. By the way, I had the other map last time, but I put it here again because we're going to need it again for today. This is a map of contemporary Israel. If you look carefully, on the map, you'll see where Shomron, the biblical Shomron, the city of Shomron was. There's a little blue flag. I'm pointing to it here. It's like here on the page. You see it in the map? You have to really squint to see it. That is Shomron. You know where it's located? Right near Shem and right south of Jenin. What we call today, they call Jenin. And do you know what area it's in Eretz Yisrael? Shomron. Why? Because Shomron. Why? The area called Samaria is Shomron, because the town of Shomron, because this is the capital city that Omri, the father of Achav, made. We saw that last time. Then you look north, look all the way north to the top of the map, beyond the top of the map, and just off to the top right. That's Damascus, is up there. You could see at the top, there's Kiryat Shmona. Where did the enemies go? I showed you last time. They captured towns where? In the vicinity of today, what would be northern Israel. Sound familiar? They made an invasion and they captured it. We saw that last time. And now they laid siege and they took, over here, The capture of those cities, by the way, happened decades earlier in the story with Malchut Yisrael, Malchut Yehuda having a fight. Asa, Basha, not for now, but we talked last time. So over here on the top, that's where they came from. 32 chieftains. They come down and they put a siege on Shomron. They got way past the Galil. They got into already, you see? Now, of course, in those days, everybody knows, to state the obvious, your border didn't have literally a fence. The fact that the Chinese built the Great Wall of China was a major chiddush. Most countries didn't have like a wall on that border. There were border towns with fortresses, etc., right? And if someone would come, then they would go out and dispatch. So now the force came down and they're beaten back and they leave. What's very strange is, first of all, the man was really going to lose. I mean, but B'derech HaTeva, he couldn't win. He knew he couldn't win. But his advisors told him, you cannot agree to capitulate, to literally have all the, the women, the children, the money, everything. He's literally going to pick it up and take it. We're willing to pay him a tax. The hegemony of the superpower. But we're going to allow them to go Bashevi? No. And I mentioned last time when it came to the Sefer Torah, I mentioned it already today as well. Why did he care so much Sefer Torah? Deeply symbolic. He is Jewish. But more than that also, the Torah says the king has to have a Sefer Torah of his own. And if you take away the Sefer Torah, the national treasure, it's the equivalent of taking away his authority, his power, his right. Okay. Again, to die for the Torah, he was ready. To live for the Torah, not as much. That's what we'll see. Al Yitalel, look here, the Malbim. Al Yitalel. Rotzlon Mishu Choger K'Mefateach. Al Yitalel. Perush. שהחוגר מלחמה וחושב על כל צדדי האפשר, שיש אפשרות גם שינוצח, הוא נלחם בעצה וגבורה. Someone who goes out to the battlefield is getting ready. You're putting on the battle gear, but you're thinking, it's possible I'm going to lose. That person is going to fight with counsel, with mightiness. He goes with hubris. I won. So easy. We don't have to try. So, Zelo Yinatzech Larov. You're not going to win. You're not going to plan. Yashlich nafsho mineged. Also, because the person on the other side, the enemy, is going to try very hard. V'rotzalomar achar she'eden lo natzachta haylecha lahashlim imi b'ma shekibalti liot lecha eved. You know, you haven't won the military battle, but you know I originally capitulated to you. I was willing to come to terms that I was going to be subjugating myself to you. Achav says to Ben-Hadad, I would have paid you tribute. I was prepared to do that. And because now, not clear if you're going to win. Vayomer elav Hadav, that's already Hadad said. They didn't bother going to the battlefield, the king and the other kings. They're sitting in the back room somewhere in fields, and they're right. The sambuca, they're drinking right. They have the coffee with whiskey in it at lunch, right? Special. They would say, how do they get right? Rachman says, you take care of it. Now, when the Malbim points out, we'll see the Radak on this also in a minute. The Navi says to him, do you see all the people arrayed here? You should know that God's going to help you win. Right? You're not going to win. You see how the force, he says to Achav, you see how they're force arrayed around you? You can't win in a natural way. I will make a miracle. And it'll happen today. And through this, you will know that I am God. As long as they think they're going to win by their own strength, which Achav doesn't really think because he knows he's vastly outnumbered, as long as he thinks that, there isn't going to be a miracle. The fighter relies on his own strength. He's not waiting for God's salvation. Al Zotamar, lo, he told him this. Do you see the masses here? Once you recognize, I want you to see how many people are here. What are the odds that you could win? I mean, not to draw a direct parallel, but we could fill in the blank. 48, 67, 73. You can keep od. What are the chances? Not great. The pollsters, all of them said who was going to win. You know, they all knew. This has happened how many times in Jewish history? And I note, and this is very important. Actually, let me see the next. Let's see the next. The Radak next. Then I'll make this point. Vayomer Simu. That's what he told him. You know, put upon the town. Yeah. Peru Simu klim al chamali lachem al ir. Vaisimu al ir. Yechinu klim al chamali lachem al ir. V'terem shesamu heim al ha'ir. Yatzu na'arei sam dinot bidvar hanavi. This is important. Sometimes the way things are told to us in the story in the Torah or the Navi or the Ketuvim is not 100% in sequence. It's a lahavdil, but it's a literary problem or not a problem, a device. Sometimes it's, and this happened already before. You just didn't hear about it before. But now it's germane, so we'll tell you, this happened earlier. Kvar Kodem, this happened. There are many, many such examples. In chapter 4 of the Torah, chapter 4, V'hadam yada et chava ishto. So Rashi there says, even though the end of the 3rd chapter of the Torah, Adam and Chava got thrown out of Gan Eden, V'hadam yada et chava ishto, and then she has the Cain and Hevel, kvar kodem. Really, that happened in Gan Eden, but it wasn't germane to the story. So the camera, the narration, didn't tell you that detail because you didn't need to know it then. But now it's germane. So now, because chapter 4 is about what happened to Cain and Hevel, Adam Yadak Kvar Kod happened. There are many such examples. I just gave you, that's the first one that pops in my mind since the beginning of the Torah. Many such examples. And what is Radak saying here? Before the siege was laid, there was one thing that Achav did. He sent the 232, this little group, Sayaret Sarem Dinot, he sent them out, the Shaldag people, you go, just in case, whatever it is, what's it called? Seret Matkal or something. He told them, go out before they close the siege on this town. Where did they go? They went to hide in the field. I don't know. They went somewhere else. So that's what he writes about. Terem shesamuhim al ha'ir, yatzu sarem dinot bidvar hanavi, ki besukot hayu shotin adayin, kshiyatza na'arei sam dinot bidvar hanavi, v'im kein v'yisim al ha'ir, eino omer she'asu kein ela, she'echinu klan milchama lilachem el ha'ir. And then there's a quote here from Targum Yonatan ben Uziel in the Aramaic, Simu Izdarzu, V'tirgem v'yasimu hal'ir v'chamanu al the karta, get ready to do this. Im kein lidvarav perush v'yasimu hal'ir, samu ma'arav al ha'ir. They already put like an ambush on the city. Usharacha hayu adayin b'Sukkot, sheyatzu nare semdinot. When this little group of 232 left Shomron, the main forces were in this area of Sukkot. Sukkot just means a place where they put up the huts. It's not necessarily literally that place. They were sitting and drinking and whatever else. And of course, the fish stinks from the head. So if the leadership is all drunk, the soldiers at best are confused and don't have leadership. And at worst, they're also drunk. Who knows? But this group was already out. Okay. So now, what would you have imagined if you wanted it to be super impressive? The Navi said to King Achav, God will make a miracle. Pause. What should the miracle be? What would be a great miracle? The greatest miracle of all? What could it be?
Not just kills them.
Yeah, how about they all die of alcohol? All the invading forces die of alcohol poisoning. They all get terrible dysentery, and they can't hold anything in their stomach, and they all have to run away. They all get a virulent strain of the virus. I don't know what, send in the locusts. But an even bigger nace happened. The bigger nace is the Navi said to Achav, you're going to win, and just you should be aware, the way you will win will look like Derech HaTeva. It's not Derech HaTeva. And I'm getting you to acknowledge, and that's why in Pasuk Yud Gimel, look how he said it to him. Just look at the words. Do you see all the masses here? The multitude? The last words, very important. So Achav asks him, kind of puzzled, who's gonna do it? Are you sending angels? Are you sending B-52 bombers? What's gonna happen now? Answers the Navi, you're gonna do it. That's what it means. Your idea here that there's a God in the world, you think means that God's making you 10 plagues. You're not on that madrega. You're fighting the war, but you're going to win. And it'll go down in history as because if Hashem's with you, you can win against all odds. That's what happened. That's what it describes. It doesn't mean the warriors didn't have to fight. Remember, Achav is the one who said, Al yitalel chogeg fateach. It meant that the soldiers aren't going out. The Jewish soldiers didn't go out. We won already. Yeah, maybe I'm sure they did. They did the dance before they went. Am Yisrael lo mefached midera, Am hanetzach lo mefached midera haruka. I'm sure they had the rabbi came and he gave the psukim from Parashat Shoftim. Going out to war. They did all that, but then they fought. There wasn't a contradiction between the two. And it seems that's what the Navi, anonymous Navi, is trying to convey to Achav. Is it you think it means that it is going to be they're all going to suddenly run away? No, it's going to be much more. It's not that there were never other things that happened, but this one, you're going to fight. But that's the whole idea. Look in the sources here, page 1. Who's the Navi? Michiyahu ben Yimla. We've never heard his name before. He's going to appear in a later story shortly, so remember that name. But he's not named. We don't have time for it today. But in Seder Olam Rabbah, I give you the source of other places where he is quoted. And we will see. We'll see them later. Well, we don't have to read this inside. We don't have time for it. But in the time of Achav and Izebel, Achav marries Izebel. She is definitely the vixen who brings him to bad things. But also, aside from Avodah Zarah, a campaign of hunting down Nevi'im and killing them. And there are almost no Nevi'im left. They're hiding in caves. They live as fugitives. And the fact that there could be a person, Eliyahu was again. Izabel said if next time she sees him, she's going to kill him. Elisha just became a Navi. He hasn't even made his name yet. And there's a Navi who isn't even named, generic Navi, in terms of Michiyahu ben Yimla, who somehow is having conversation with Achav. He's in dialogue with the Navi. Something's going on. But it's almost like the text of the Navi wants to hide even what the identity is, because in the court of Izabel, if she finds out, going to kill him. But there's some Navi having conversation with Achav. Turn the page, the back of this page. Oh, no. Oh, is it one-sided? I try to do two-sided. Is it one-sided? Okay, sorry. I killed a tree. Sorry. This is the Radak. Hara'ita et kol ha'amon hazeh agadol hazeh, sheyashish nenatzcheh b'derech hateva, hine not lo b'yadcha b'derech nes, v'zeh yahayom, v'zeh yadat k'ni Hashem. Okay. Second line on page 2. The 4 words in. V'ratzah lomar, shekol od yitzuya shuchel l'tzoch b'kucham, lo yaseh Hashem b'derech nes, kilchem smech l'kocho. Did I give you the same source twice? I gave you the same source twice by accident. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the next one, the Radak. I don't know, I copied it 2 times. Sorry, Radak. Next page. The next source. Page 2, second source. Benari Semdinot. Who are these people? These 232. V'na'arim ha'ila hayu gedelim etzlo ki chen minhag melachim sheyigdelu b'chatzreihem b'nei hasarim hagdolim. So this is the minhag of the Melachim. They had the sons of the ministers in his retinue would live also. They grew up in the court, so they knew about government and they knew about leadership. V'yeshomrim, some say ki he b'nei ha'taruvot shelokeach hamelech b'nei hasarim imo liot lo eravon shleimrudu bo hasarim. Some say that these people are the surety. They are the guarantors. They're taken from each of the homes of the ministers. And it's not just they grow up with the privileges of the royal court, but also that they are the guarantors that if any of the ministers try to rebel, they will be harmed. They're hostages living in a golden cage. Yeah. Umash amar b'nei semdinot saloma lo titzrech lehavi chayil ufarashim michutz el botam sheimcha ner semdinot v'chasher itcha ba'ir. You won't even need an outside army. You don't have to muster the troops. Your standing army of 7,000, your 232 are here. They're going to do it. Ve'efshar shenasu el shomron chayil min ha'arim ha'acherot. Could be other troops came from other towns around. Or hayu mishomron hashivat alafim ve'efshar she'otam shivat alafim hayu otam asher lo karu labal. Could be these 7,000 were the 7,000 who did not bow down to the Baal. They weren't idolaters. Almost everyone else in Malchut Yisrael was worshiping idols, who brought the culture. Izebel did. Jezebel. Umiya Sora Milchama. Look at this Radak here. Ki inyan vayesor b'chbo shu inyan tikus harechev. Ki rosh milchama yikra oser. The fishu matchil. He's the one who's going first. Vayesor b'chbo. He's going to fire up the chariots. It's the way of war. He's the tocsin that announces. He's the herald. We're going. Right? So v'amacharav v'lama shalachav miyasor umiyasor Elohu shehu melech. What is he asking? Who's going to be the first to go? Who's going to be the king leading the charge? Obviously, it's him. You know this expression. It's in the Shira, in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, when they go through the Yam Suf. Vayesor et richbo. Paro gets his chariot ready. Means he leads. It doesn't mean he goes all the way to the battlefield, but he actually leads the charge. Where he leaves town to go out to the battlefield. He gives the. So what are you asking? What are you asking the Navi? Radak wants to know. Why is the king asking the Navi? Excuse me, who's going to lead it? It's the king is going to lead it. Ella, Lefisha haya oved avodat gilulim, since he was an idolater, and he knew he was an idolater, v'kadosh baruch hu oseh im Yisrael nes, and it's about to be a miracle. Chashav achav shlo yaseh kadosh baruch hu nes im yesham. Who? The miracle's not going to involve Achav. Achav is not in God's good graces. He's an idolater. He's done terrible things. He and his wife together. I mean, it's his wife more than him, but he lives in the household. He is the king. She killed many, many people. So Lefi shehu oved avodat gilu lefi chach sha'al mi yasor milchama v'yomer ata, and the Navi told him, "You're going to do it." So isn't this fascinating? The guy's wicked. He's a no goodnik, and he knows he's not worthy. But even though he's not worthy, Shem does a miracle for the Jewish people. And he tells this person who's maybe not a good person, you're still going to be the leader. What's God's game plan? What's Hashem's game plan, do you think? Why is Hashem doing this?
To bring him back.
Yeah. Maybe Achav will do tshuva. Maybe Achav will realize we weren't going to win this. I just saw the masses, to as far as the eye can see, of soldiers coming to get me. And then with such a small group, we were successful. And the Navi told me it would be successful. And I actually got to lead the charge. I have responsibility, things I have to do. Spoiler alert, he doesn't do tshuva. He doesn't do tshuva. But the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, to show you here, Av, that was really his name, but like people are darshaning, like what does his name mean? And that's like the memes that make fun of a politician. They change their name to something, something they don't like. So Av, Chazal say, Ach l'shamayim, Av lavodah zarah. Yeah. He was a brother to Shamayim. You can't be a brother to Shamayim because there's a God above you. So if you say God is my brother like that, you chummy with your Rebbeinu Shalom. I'm aware there are psukim. I'm aware of the psukim in Tanakh that imagine a Kodesh Baruch Hu kiviyachol as if he's the motif in Ach. You don't get to do that when you're Achav. And Av for Avodah Zarah. Ach l'shamayim dichtiv eit l'tzara yulad. Av l'avodah zarah dichtiv kirachem av al banim. Right, so okay, he's a nasty guy. That's a pasuk. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Underneath, this is the open source translation from Sensino. You can see it inside. The light things that Yeravam did, and he was not good. The light things that Achav did were equivalent to the worst things that Yeravam did. Yeah, so why is Yeravam considered worse? He ruined things first. He started the trend. You put the altars, the piles on all the fields, the little furrows of the fields. Now, does it literally mean he was walking himself? No, the culture was that way. And he fostered the culture and he developed the culture. How do we know that Achav doesn't have a chelik in Olam Haba? Because we'll say shortly, we're going to read it. Everybody's gone. The men, everybody. Yeah, gone. Atzur b'olam hazeh, ave'azuv b'olam haba. Because Achav such a drasha, Achav doesn't get a good report card, putting it charitably. But the idea here, of course, is that there was a hope that he would get the memo that after that crazy victory, he would do tshuva. He didn't do tshuva. But obviously Hashem saw maybe there's some potential. And the job of the Navi is to educate the people. Rebuking them is not just for the sake of wagging the finger, but to tell them you could do better. Eliyahu was the rebuking Navi, stopped the rain for years, had open words of conflict with Achav. Not an anonymous Navi, the everyman Navi. At the moment the chips are down and it's over, gave the king confidence, Hashem will help you. And you'll know that there is a God in the world. Now this is the same Achav. He stood at Har Carmel. He saw already the fire, the Nevi Abal died. So what was that about? Also, maybe, but what are you going to say?
Maybe he's rewarding him for protecting the Torah.
That's the Gemara. Yeah, we saw that last time. That's the Gemara says. He was successful because he protected the Torah. For sure. That is what happened. And if you look at page 2 at the bottom, the Abarbanel says, he asks a lot of questions, the Abarbanel, and he answers them. It's a very, very long commentary. We're running a little short on time here. So the first question is, if God already told Eliyahu Hanavi that Eliyahu should make sure that Chazael should be the new king on Aram, so that he would attack the Jewish people and punish the Jewish people, yeah? And so now Aram came to fight the Jewish people. So why did Hashem get the Jewish people win against Achav and the Jewish people? He already told Eliyahu they're going to get punished, right? And that's the opposite of exactly what Hashem told Eliyahu. Now, Chazael was not the king yet. He's going to be the next king. Ben Hadad is the king. He told him, you'll know that there's a God. So God already knew that we saw the fire that came down from heaven, Har Carmel. They already said the words, Hashem hu Elokim. And yet, even though they said, Hashem is God, they said all that. Hashem is the Lord. He's the most powerful. He's the force of everything. But then they didn't give up their idolatry. They kept going. So it says, so why did he win? He won yet again? How were they saved again in the war? And not once, but more than once. So the next page. The next page. Second, Hadad says that he uses this weird expression, which could just be a man who's drunk. If they came for peace, catch them alive. And if they came to war against you, alive, you shall catch them. You know, to kill them? What are you trying to do? No matter what, keep them alive? So what is the shalom and milchama? And why do you say tafsum chayim, chayim tafsum? It's the same thing. Capture them alive. Why do you have to have this limerick? So, and this is the contradiction that maybe we sometimes also still have trouble with, but it's the reality. The Abarbanel answers in his first question. It's right there. It says Tedvav, page 3. He was wicked, but he believed in Nevi'im. Yeah, because said, you know, there are these 7,000 of the 7,000 are bound down to idols. They can fight. They're going to go. So Achav saw that maybe it's not for him that there'll be a miracle, but for them there'll be a miracle. So that's why he's asking the same thing. Barbanel, like the Radak, who's actually going to go out and do it? Maybe he's so wicked, God doesn't want him to be involved, right? And God's thought, Hashem amku, ki lefish yagzirato shebnei Aram yasu b'yisrael makat cher behereg v'ovdan be'eva gedol v'sinat mufleget sivev shtiyeh beinehem milchama shinat chisel v'yaku b'Aram akaraba pam achar pam sheyah Achav oseh milchamot באופן שיתלד בין ישראל וארם שנאה עצומה. ויבקשו בני המלכים מישראל, שמלך הרב יצווה לאנשים, לא תלחמו את קטן ואת גדול, כי אם את מלך ישראל לבדו, כמו שיזכור אחר זה, there's going to be such enmity, such hatred between the Jewish people and the Arameans because of the wars that they're fighting now, where the Jews will win. That eventually the Arameans will come and they will punish the Jewish people very badly. So in other words, according to the Abarbanel, even though the Jews are winning here, there's an off-ramp if they do tshuva, but if they don't, it's all a setup to lull the Jewish people into not thinking that in the third war against Aram, they could lose because we have a winning streak. Because we won the war, shall we say, 3 years ago, and 10 years ago, and then 12 years ago, and then 16 years ago. We won all those wars. Can't do anything to us. We have deterrence. Then the enemy shows up. Boom. On each of the wars here, there was an off-ramp. Maybe, but they didn't do tshuva. So therefore, Hashem makes it so that the wars are actually end up being a cause that there should be greater hatred between Aram and Israel. The fact that actually it'll lower the guard in the end of the Jewish people. And okay. That's where it plays out. Yeah, we have just about a minute left. I want to just read you the next section. We should see it inside because we want to next week pick it up again. But we do like a preview. Look at verse 23, pasuk 23. I'm on page 435. We'll close with some psukim so you understand what happened next. Remember, the Navi said in a year he's coming back. V'avdei melech Aram ru elav Elohei harim Eloheihem al kein chazku mimenu. So they tell the king of Aram, and notice that his name has changed here from Ben Hadad to Melech Aram. Yeah, notice he was called Ben Hadad until now. Now, Melech Aram. What did they say? Because he's back at home. He's back with his strength. Their God is just the God of the mountain range. You went to Shomron, to the Samarian area. There's mountains there. That's why you lost. Their God has no power outside of that area. Find him in a plain, you'll win. Let the kings go home and put someone else who's lesser in their place. We'll have a war against them. So Ben Hadad is plotting. I'll find them in another way. I'll get them. I'll smoke them out. I can't get them on their home turf, but I can get them on the plain. Where? Where's the Mishor? Where is Afeka? Go to your, we're not going to see the rest of the sources today. We'll have to see it next time. Go over here to the map, and you'll see right near the Yam Kinneret, just to the right of Yam Kinneret, in the Golan, is Afek. And if you've ever been to the Golan, you know that it is high, it's a height, but it's not because it's so mountainous, it's that it's a plain higher up. So that's where the battle's going to be. That's where we think the biblical afek was. And what do we learn? They arrive. And they came to war against the Jewish people. Verse 27. The description of the Jewish people is it's two little flocks of goats that are sitting there. That's what they look like, a satellite image. Two little flocks of goats, and the rest of it is covered with the enemies all over. Vayigash Isha Elohim. By the way, according to the Seder Olam Rabbah, same guy, a year later. Now watch what he tells them this time. Vayomer el Melech Yisrael Vayomer. Ko amar Hashem. Yan asher amru aram Elohei arim Hashem. V'Elohei amakim hu. V'natati et kol ha'amon hagadol hazeh biyadecha. V'yedatem ki ani Hashem. You hear what the Navi told him? In the first conversation, the Navi said to him, what did he tell him? Achav, do you see the forces arrayed against you? Hashem will save you, and you'll be the leader. And you'll know that Hashem is the God. A year later, what's the reason why you're going to win? Nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your people, nothing to do with your merit. One thing, Chilul Hashem, desecration of God's name. God knows that in the halls, corridors of power of Ben-Hadad, the reason why they're coming for this war, because they think that God is not everywhere. They think God is only in mountains. So they're finding you in the Golan Heights, right? There you don't have sovereignty. God doesn't have sovereignty in the Golan Heights. So they think. So the Navi says, oh no, God has sovereignty there. That's why you're going to win. So don't think it had to do with you, not the Jewish people, not because God's making a miracle for you. That was last year. This year, it's because God's name is on the line, and that's why you're going to win. And you know what should happen as a result of it? It's not what's going to happen, but what he hopes happen. V'yadatem ki ani Hashem. Because the one time that you win against the odds, one thing. But two times? And that's where you find here the war, the second war. Yeah? And we don't have time to see it inside. We'll get to it next week. Spoiler alert, the Jews win the war a second time. And what's going to happen? Is Achav going to get the memo the second time against all odds that they won? Unfortunately, he doesn't get the message. But come next week, we'll talk about the second war, Aram, against Jewish people in the days of Achav, and we'll see the aftermath as well. We'll see some more of the sources inside. Adkan for today. Wish everyone a great week. Okay, and I'll try to send out the recording from the last one if you want to watch it or